Hello, Internet. I'm Guglopone, and the developer of Echoes of the Rift, which is a game made for the GMTK Game Jam 2025. And so in this video, I'm going to walk through the game, show you all of the secrets and little things that happen in the game, and then talk about the experience I had making this game. The jam took 4 days, and I didn't get a lot of sleep, but I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So let's dive right in. So starting right off with the title screen here, I was very happy with this swirling purpley rift thing. That was just a lot of fun to make. But the game itself has 4 different modes, and so as you play through the game, it's the same general adventure, but then the perspective changes. And so I decided to do this because of the idea of looping, which was the theme for the jam. But perhaps it was a little crazy to make 4 games instead of 1. But that's part of the fun, and I think it turned out pretty cool. So you can see here I've got a selection menu. It's mouse driven. That was fun. I got that to work. You can move the mouse to select there. But mostly the game is played with the keyboard, and so you can use the WASD keys to toggle here. The arrow keys also do the same thing. And then I've got a bunch of different buttons that are triggered to accept that, including Shift, Spacebar, E, and the left mouse button. So all of those buttons do the same thing, and that would get you into the game. And so when I was making this game, I started with the top-down perspective. And so that's the one we're going to jump right into now. And so let's jump in. Boom. So I added a little bit of controls UI to the game with these images on the screen here. And that was done in the last 30 minutes of the jam. So hopefully that's enough. Mostly the game uses very standard controls. There's not that much mechanical complication in this game. The idea is that you're wandering around talking to people, and then there's a bunch of secrets to find. And those secrets are all sort of context sensitive. And I'll show all of the secrets in this video in case you're stuck on something. You'll be able to see where everything's hidden. And so right off the bat, we've got the summoner here. You can talk to him with the spacebar, Shift, E, or the left mouse button, like it says there. So let's talk to him. He's got some stuff to say. That dialogue line changes the second time. This is the only one in the game that does that. This is the first one I implemented. But the second line, and this is true for a lot of them, changes based on how many loops you've done. The first loop in each mode always has the same lines, but then each subsequent loop, they say something different based on how many loops you've done, how many crystals you've found, and so there's sort of 2 dialogue lines that each get worse and worse as you do loops, and then there's 1 dialogue line that's better if you found half the secrets or more. And if you found half the secrets or more, then it always shows the best possible dialogue line. But right now, this is the first loop. And so he says basically just, what are you going to do? Throw the crystal into the rift, and we'll see how that goes. But the first secret is in this room. If you walk in circles around this guy, it's a little bit finicky, the collision. But if you walk in circles 3 times, there's our first secret. I was pretty happy with that secret animation too. There were some issues with the tweening of those secret crystals, but when it works, it looks really nice. So let's leave the house. And so the first day of the jam, all I got was this room and the last room and that one guy to talk to. And that was the first day. I felt like that was pretty good. I also had the idea right off the bat, and I didn't change it this time. Last year, I changed on the second day what game I was going to make. But this time, I was locked in right from the start, which really helped. So we got a wagon boy here. He says hello. And then he says, oh, jump on this wagon 5 times. So that's a not so subtle hint. I was hoping that people would find out that there were secrets without me having to like be too obvious, but this is pretty obvious. He says jump on it 5 times. You can't jump on it here. And so that clue is for the platforming mode. And so there's a secret involved in that one, but you can't get it here. And that's the idea, is that each mode has a clue for a secret in a different mode. So there are going to be 3 clues hidden in this top-down mode, and they're going to point to each of the other modes to really make sure you have to loop through each mode a bunch of times. You go in here to the witch's house, and she's got some dialogue. This dialogue changes too. This is the intro dialogue here. But we've got another secret in this room, and that's if you walk to this wall and you hit the interact key, boom, you've got a crystal. I love how those crystals bounce in and out. So, moving right along from the village, now we've got a little bird in a tree. Oh man, southeast, north, north. Not so subtle hint there. And that clue will be for a later area. But another secret is these red flowers. Hit the interact key, you get another crystal. And that is hinted at in the platforming area. I'll point that out. Oh, I won't be able to point it out because I just got the crystal. Oh, we'll see that later. But we're moving right along to the first room in the tower. And so we've got this guy here, little guardian. If you walk into the middle of the room, he will rush at you, boom, and get you. And it just kicks you right out to the last room. So it's not like actually a big deal. And this is based on the frame rate. So if there's any bugs in the game, I expect there to be one here. I'm certain there's lots of bugs, but one of them is definitely here. So if you've got a high frame rate, this guy's going to rush at you really fast. He already moves pretty fast. The idea is that you can't get by him unless you sneak along the wall. You can actually, at my frame rate, you can sort of get him to stop if you leave the zone. And you can sort of bait him around. It's kind of funny. But if you get to this corner, for people who are having trouble, and you just hold up and over, he doesn't go for long enough, so you can just get right in there without having to use any dexterity there. If you're having trouble doing that because your frame rate's really high, you can probably get there by going like this. You hold over and just tap the down button. And you can get through without triggering his zone. So, not so bad. But there's an X on the ground here. Another clue. This one is for the first person mode. But that brings us to the end of the loop. There's a little indication of the chest here from a different mode, but there's nothing to do. Just the vortex, the rift, and you can interact with it. And there you go. Some dialogue. And you can see the 3 secrets that you've collected are right there floating on the UI. Bottom left, secrets found 3, total loops 2, because I did a loop before I started recording. And let's move on to the visual novel. No, we'll do the platformer. I did the visual novel mode third, but I ordered them in the order of the way that I think they turned out in terms of quality. I think the visual novel turned out pretty nice. Top down is sort of the most standard. So that's why I chose the order on this screen here. But let's do the platformer mode next. So you've got left and right, spacebar's jump, and instead of the interact key talking, it's the up key. But you can talk to the wise old man, and then move right along here. And so here's the wagon. Talk to the guy. And let's jump on this 5 times. You can actually see the crystal drifting up and down on the bottom there. And so you get that. And so we can go into the other house. And there's the clue. You can't get to this crystal here in this mode. And so that's for the first person mode. Another up arrow to indicate to talk to the witch here. But there's another secret in this room. And this is indicated in the FPS. Yeah, so you can jump on these clouds. There's a secret hidden platform there. And this one I imagine somebody might find without the clue. But you just jump on the roof there, and you get the next secret. Moving right along to the forest. Just a little bit of platforming. Beneath these red flowers, in the dirt, there would be a crystal, but we collected it already. And I went through the trouble to make sure that the crystals that you collected don't appear in the game world after you collect them. Except for one crystal that I didn't get. There's a few things I'd change. But hey. Strict time limit. I didn't get a lot of sleep. Did I mention that? So, the Guardian in this mode goes back and forth. Let's let him get me. Just drops you outside. So same as all the modes, the Guardian does not really do that much to you. But there's a clue in the visual novel mode to this crystal. You can actually see it directly below the player here. I saw a lightning spark because it just bleeds through the little square that I've got blocking this off. But if you jump over here, the little hidden area, you can get the crystal. Oh, try to jump out of the gap. You can do it, but it's not very easy. And there's another tricky jump in here that I would have changed, is this top one. So there's a ceiling to this room that I'll remove in the next version, but you can just barely make this jump. So that's there, the last room. Another clue for the chest later on. KTMG, what could that mean? So, nothing to do but yeet ourselves into the rift. And there we go. Next, let's go through the visual novel mode. And so, I drew these backgrounds by hand. I don't know if you could tell. And so, there's some dialogue here. And so, here's the man in the robe holding a large crystal. It says the crystal is glowing dimly. And so that's one of the dialogue lines that changes as the game goes on. So I'll come back and we'll do the visual novel mode a second loop so you can see that that changes. But here's my cool sprite for the summoner. And then you can talk to him, listen to what he has to say. As I was testing this, I sort of skipped all that. I wrote a bunch of dialogue, but I didn't spend that much time reading it after I wrote it. And so you just talk through, and eventually you can leave. And then you got to this area, the village. And so there's a secret that uses this area. And so you got to enter the house. You can see the hint to the secret in the top-down mode is that little X on the wall. That's where you got to interact with the room. So here's a mysterious lady. You got to wink at the lady twice. And only twice. If you wink 3 times, it doesn't work. Then you got to leave the house. And then you've got to talk to the wagon boy. And so then he has a dialogue line, which is a clue about a pink flower. And then, because I winked at the mysterious lady, you get yourself a crystal. And so you can see a nice close-up of the crystal and its awesome lightning bolts and its wiggly glowiness. And so then you can move on to the forest. And so there's another secret here. And so if you remember what the bird was saying, you've got to head south. Then you head east. Then you head north. And then you head north. And after that, you get the crystal. And I spelled ethereal wrong here. But I'll go through this and do a whole revision on all the dialogue. Maybe. We'll see. But, so there's the forest crystal. To get through the forest, it's not that complicated. You can just always choose head east. And in the narrative I said, well, there's a big tower. You're not going to lose it. You can't lose sight of the tower. So you head east to the tower, and then eventually, after 3 easts, you get yourself into the tower. And of course, our friend the Guardian's back. And so it says, walk slowly along the walls of the room. And this is a clue to get past the Guardian in both the top-down and the first-person modes. So if you weren't able to figure out how to get by, I was sort of hoping that you'd read this if you tried a different mode, and you'd be able to get through it. But if you walk toward the statue, he throws you out, but it just starts the line over again, because I didn't want to make anyone die or like lose. So walk slowly along the walls of the room, and you are done. And so then this puts us at the rift, the final area. Each mode has all 6 of the areas, the 2 houses, the village, the forest, the tower, and the rift at the top of the tower. So each of those 6 areas is represented in each of the 4 modes. But we're at the tower. We've got the chest here. And so this is where you can interact with the chest, which you can see in all the other modes too. And so if you examine the chest, there's another chance to input your code here. And the code is GMTK backwards. But I guess I sort of obscured what the letters were a little bit. So G, M, ta, and key is how that's pronounced. That's a real word. But that's supposed to be the K. And so that maybe is a little bit tricky to know that these represent those. But by process of elimination, you should be able to figure out that this is the K. So you start with K, and then you do T, and then you do M, and then you do G, and then you've got your last crystal in this mode. And so then you can throw the crystal into the rift and start your next loop. And so I'm going to go back into the visual novel loop again so you can see the dialogue changes. And so here's the man. And it says the crystal is glowing more brightly than before. So a little bit of an indication that you've been here before. And so I'm just going to click right through all of this. I should have been paying attention because it just said the swirling was different. So if we continue toward the forest, it says the forest is filled with a sense of foreboding. That's new. So if we go east 3 times, it says the tower doors stand open. The rift lies ahead. That's not what it said before. So just a little bit of dialogue fanciness going on. And that's true in all the modes, not just this one. You walk along. Oh, also, there's a little clue on the back wall there, and that's for the platform mode, that there's a little thing hidden high up on the wall behind the Guardian. So that's an indication of that. That one might be a little bit tricky to find, but that's the clue there. And so you get up here, it says the rift hangs above you, churning and twisting. So that's not what that said before. And then we can throw the crystal in. And there's 4 lines for each of those options there. So I encourage you to go through and see them all. But the last one I got, and this was on the last day, I got to the first person mode. So this one is the hardest one to get. Maybe it's not the hardest one, because I had learned a lot about the editor. So the top-down mode was really sort of a janky, scrapped together mode. But then when I did the platform mode next, the coding got a lot nicer. I was able to like reuse assets. And when I finally got to this mode, the first person mode, it was actually reasonably nice coding. So here we are in the summoner's room. There's a little clue on the ground about how to get the crystal in the top-down mode of this room. You can talk to him. And I did not implement this dialogue right. So that's a bummer. Use this for an early loop is my like copy and paste text. So, whoopsie. Sorry, summoner. But you can leave. The village and the forest are one area in the first person mode. We got our wagon boy here. Filled with looming dread, or maybe it's the world ending. And he says, wink at the lady twice and come talk to me. So that's the clue for the visual novel mode. Swirl on a big black quadrilateral in the sky. Couldn't get that transparent in the time. Let's go into the witch's house. So the witch has got some dialogue here. And then, if you look in here, the only thing is this awkward red corner. If you interact with it, it goes down, and then big ol' white square comes out. That's the crystal. I realized I could have done a billboarded 3D sprite like the characters later, but it got the job done. And also, there's a hint over here. So the guys got the hint for the visual novel. On top of this house, if we hadn't gotten it, is the clue, and you can see the crystal up there and that's for the platformer mode. But we've got some more stuff to find. This flower is what the wagon boy's talking about in the visual novel mode. If you hit the interact key, the crystal comes down. Doesn't always come down. The tweening is very weird here, but hey, it worked this time, so we're in good shape here. But let's move right along to the tower. And so this room works a lot like the top-down one, where if you go close, oh, he's coming at you, and then he just snaps you back to this room because I didn't want to reload the whole other zone. I think, yeah, you can't even go back. So you're trapped and have to go forward. He gets you. So you got to go around the edge. The collision is linked to a space in front of the player, so it's actually a little bit more sensitive. But you can get in there. And the last secret, as seen in the top-down, is if you hit the interact key here, pops out of the ground. The lighting is very stark in this area, but there it is. And you can continue onward to the rift. A little chest indication there. But the only thing to do in this area is to walk to the rift, hit the interact key, and then that will get us to the end, where you can see we found all of the crystals. There's a nice little thank you for playing. And that's the game. So thank you very much for coming on this journey with me. Have a great day.